we probably still should have made the playoffs anyway.
That means at some point in the last 75 years, I was the guy.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cup Connection. I'm Mike Massaro, and we are fortunate today to have Alex Bowman with us. Alex, hey, how are you?
Doing great. Thank you for having me.
Hey, before we get started, there's been something on my mind for quite some time. I want to go back in time a little bit here, if you will. I want to go back to 2016 when you were asked to fill in for Dale Earnhardt Jr. When Dale Earnhardt Jr. had his concussion issues initially, you were asked to take over that ride. I can only imagine what that was like, jumping in the seat of the most popular driver in the series at the time. Looking back, it's been several years. Obviously, you've done a lot since then. But what was it like back then in 2016, taking that the 88 car?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely was a big step from anywhere I'd been before, with driving for a lot of really small race teams before that. And for me, I didn't really pay as much attention to it being the 88 car or filling in for Dale Earnhardt Jr. I just paid attention to it being a Hendrick Motorsports car and like my opportunity to run well. So, that first race we ran really well till we cut a tire at the end of the day. But yeah, it was super cool. It was an honor to get to drive that car for a couple of years. And glad that Jeff Gordon was in France that week and couldn't get back in time because it worked out.
I forgot that was part of the situation. But obviously a great opportunity for you. It's worked out well. Oh, by the way, you're behind the wheel of another car that was driven by an icon. The 48 did some things as well. So you didn't make things easy on yourself. I mean, you're following in the footsteps of some legends there at Hendrick.
Yeah, for sure. It's like, kind of the 88, ran the 88 for a couple of years, starts to kind of become mine a little bit. And then Mr. H is like, all right, we're going to go to the 48 now. So it's been an interesting journey so far, but working with Ally and everybody at Hendrick Motorsports on the 48 team has been super cool. So it's an honor to get to drive that car as well. And, to get Ally their first wins and the success that we've had has been really special. This year has definitely been tough for a lot of reasons. Breaking your back in the middle of the season is a little bit suboptimal, but it's been great working with a lot of great people.
You led me to something I wanted to get to eventually, but let's get to it right now. The back situation, the injury. It's been several months since it happened. Are you still feeling the effects?
I don't think so. I feel like I'm getting back to like the fitness level I was at before I got hurt. Finally, that's kind of been the longest thing for me. But I think I feel pretty well. There were a couple races where I was sore afterwards, but it's been a bit since then. So, feeling good. Definitely was not a fun thing to go through. And honestly, it was painful, but it wasn't. It could have been so much worse. So, sure. Just thankful that I was able to heal pretty quickly and get back in the car reasonably quickly afterwards. So, I wish it didn't happen, and I wish our season was still going how it was before that. But I think I've recovered pretty well from it.
Yeah, it was going great before that. At one point, you were the championship leader, and then of course you had the injury. There was also a points penalty along the way as well. Where do you think you'd be right now if none of this adversity had happened this year?
That's a tough question. I feel like, the points penalty was really big. If we don't get the points penalty and I run all the races, we at least make the playoffs, right? I mean, I think that was kind of a given, but we probably still should have made the playoffs anyway. If we just could have run.
Yeah, I mean, you're really close. I mean, you battled for sure.
Yeah, just we didn't run how we should have once I came back. We had a lot of issues that were outside of our control. There were some weeks that we just missed it, and other weeks that I made mistakes on my side. So that's just part of racing. It felt like before the injury, we really couldn't do anything wrong, and post-injury, we can't do anything right. But we've had fast race cars here lately, with the exception of Homestead, and I feel like we can continue to grow as a team, and we're in a good spot as a team. We just It might not look like it on paper, but we'll be all right. And I'm excited to try to finish these last two strong and have some positive momentum going into 24.
All right, let's talk about the next two. Let's start with Martinsville. It's a place where you won in 2021. I'm sure that gives you a little confidence going into the week.
Yeah, I would say Martinsville's one of my best racetracks. We were strong. We were kind of hit and miss there in the spring. There were a couple runs that were really strong, and I think everybody fought that with the tire situation. But I'm excited to go there. It was a place that I didn't like for a long time, but I feel like I've learned a lot, probably from my teammates and also from working with Greg Ives on that track for a long time because we struggled so much. I feel like we got pretty good there the last couple of years. So no different with Blake. I feel like we should be really good there, and definitely looking forward to it.
So why didn't you like it the first couple of years?
Well, I'm a selfish race car driver, and we didn't run very well, so that equates to you not liking it. But yeah, I mean, I think it was just a place that I struggled at, and I wanted a little bit different. I wanted something different than my teammates did to go fast there. And I think once we were able to achieve that, we ran really well. Like you would look at us and the 9 were typically the two best Hendrick cars there with the Gen 6 car. And we had completely different setups. Like we were kind of way different from each other. And that's just kind of, I needed something different. And once we finally got there, we were really strong every week there.
All right. So Martinsville, it's always an exciting race, but adding to the tension, I would guess, is the fact that it's the last race before the championship event. 2 spots still up for grabs. Maybe some desperation for some drivers. How does that impact this race?
I wish I was still in it, right? But for us, you can just focus on going and running the race. But yeah, I'm sure guys are trying to get all they can. Martinsville's not really a place, unless it's a late race restart. There's really not much you can do out of desperation at Martinsville. You're kind of either good or you're not. I mean, obviously it's easy to knock somebody out of the way, but you have to put yourself in position to do that and be fast enough to get there to begin with. So, we saw some desperation last year, and nobody's allowed to do that anymore. So, I mean, I think those guys are probably just focused on going and executing and trying to win the race. So, hopefully William can get in on points, and maybe Chase can win and get in the owner's deal. And that's probably the optimal situation for HMS. So, as far as the 48 team, we're just going to go run our race and try to come home with the clock.
Yeah, you mentioned the desperation. I think you're referencing the Ross Chastain move, riding the wall. I'm guessing that's it, right?
Yeah, I was sitting right there on the pit box because I didn't run that race, and crazy to see for sure.
Yeah, and we'll never forget that. I don't think anybody will. Yeah, as you mentioned, you're going to go out there. You're going to try to win the race as well. But there's other guys who are trying to advance to the Final Four. What's it like trying to balance your own personal goals, trying to get the 48 to victory lane when there's some organizational goals as well? Yeah, I mean, I think the great thing for me right now is that, it's Martinsville and Phoenix. There's not a whole lot I can do to help, right? So, you obviously don't want to put a teammate in a bad situation, but for us, we're just focused on getting the 48 victory lane and honestly trying to get good finishes. Like it seems like whenever we're fast, something happens, and whenever we're slow, you can't put us out of our misery. So hopefully, just go have a solid day and execute and get a good finish. And if we have a shot at winning, we're definitely going to go for it. So having Kyle locked in is really good. And I think William's in a really good situation. So just go do my job the best I possibly can. Couple good races for you. Great racetrack coming up in Martinsville. And also a home game, so to speak, with Phoenix, a couple races down the road, the championship race. Something about the championship races always stood out for me. You go back to when they first instituted the Final Four championship format, if you will. Every year, the championship finale is won by one of those Final Four contenders. It always is. Now, granted, they're the best drivers. That's their best teams, I should say. That's why they're there. That's that they've executed all season long. So it shouldn't be a surprise. But still, it seems odd to me that nobody's broken that up. No non-championship contender has won that final race. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I mean, I would say with the Gen 6 car, it was a little different. I think with everything that was on the table to do to those cars, those championship 4 cars showed up on a little bit different level than the rest of the field. But, the Gen 7 cars, everything's the same. So I think that just speaks to those guys that are in the round of 4 for a reason, right? Like they are the best guys, the best executing teams, and they're kind of on top of their game at that point in the season. So I would love to break that up, especially at my home track. That would be really nice. We've come close to winning there before and had a lot of struggling days there as well. So, it's a track that means a lot to me, and hopefully we can get the job done, and maybe I can win and one of my teammates can run second with a championship. That'd be good for me.
I don't think that's far-fetched at all. I think that's quite possible. Wrapping things up now with Alex Bowman. Alex, as you mentioned, a home game in Arizona. You got a big contingent coming out there, a lot of family and friends?
Yeah, for sure. Everybody will be there hanging out, which is always cool. Just to see my family. I mean, a lot of my family goes to different races too, but everybody's kind of there at once, which is a good time to a point. It's a lot for sure whenever we go home, but looking forward to it. I mean, the atmosphere for that event's really cool. I know it's going to be a good one for sure.
All right. Well, we wish you the best of luck. We thank you once again for joining us here on Cup Connection. Folks, we hope to see you again next week, but don't go away. We have another interview coming up with one of the 75 greatest drivers of all time. Joining us now is one of the 75 greatest drivers in NASCAR history, Ryan Newman. Ryan, hey, thanks for being with us, bud.
Hey, good to be here. It's a beautiful day where I'm at. I hope it is where you are.
Yeah, it's gorgeous here in Connecticut. I can see it is like that in North Carolina as well. Hey, 75 greatest drivers. That's a pretty big honor. How do you look at that?
It's really special. I'm a, what do they call it, a left side of the brain, mathematical kind of guy. And if you do the whole 75 thing, that means at some point in the last 75 years, I was the guy, right? Like if you do the numbers, like Jimmy Johnson more than 1 year, Richard Petty more than 1 year, Dale Earnhardt more than 1 year. But if you do the numbers, I was the guy on a given year that made it in. And that's the way I kind of look at it. So it's really an honor, an unexpected honor from my standpoint. And obviously I've always said cool to be a part and live out a dream, but then to be a part of the elite group that is the top 75 in NASCAR in the history. And you're talking a lot of history and a lot of really cool names and a lot of people that probably flew under the radar and are yet to be acknowledged. But either way, just a complete honor.
How'd you find out?
I was at Winchester doing a reveal. It's not a reveal, but more like a restoration type project with Fox, and they surprised me with a little plaque of me being NASCAR 75 greatest. And they had Tom Bigelow, of all people, one of the greatest open wheel drivers of all time, hand it to me, and really shocked me because I didn't expect what they were giving me, just as a gift in general, let alone what the gift was. And then to have Tom Bigelow hand it to me was like a triple honor.
Wow. I mean, you deserved it, obviously. 18 wins, 51 poles, won the Daytona 500, won the Brickyard 400. I mean, just the accolades just go on and on. I don't know why you were surprised.
Mostly just because there's so many great drivers. I'm not the only one to have won 18 or more. And I feel like I've been a part of the sport for 20 years. That's or at least 20 of the 75, right? So that's a big relevant chunk, I guess you could say. So I feel like there are guys that either way, it's just a complete honor and a surprise because it wasn't on my radar. Was probably the biggest thing.
Well, congratulations nonetheless. Hey, I want to move on here. There's so many things to talk about. I'm not really sure where to start. Let's first start with your schedule, all right? So I was looking at your schedule. You're running a handful of Cup races. We know that. But you're also running the Smart Modified Tour and the SRX Tour. How do you balance all that?
So my priority is my kids. And the rest of that racing schedule you just talked about is a filler for when my daughters don't have activities. In the form of my oldest, Brooklyn, who races outlaw karts, She's tested a Focus Midget a few times. My youngest daughter, Ashlyn, who dances. So when they're not busy, I got a chance to be busy. And I've been lucky and blessed to have, like, for instance, the SRX schedule is Thursday nights, really very little conflict there. The Smart Modified Tour, I got the opportunity to race when I can. And the same deal with Rick Ware and on the Cup side. So I love racing. We've talked about that for years. So whenever I have a chance to do it and it's not a conflict, I get to go do it. So that's just how I filled it up.
Well, I love the priority. I'm a dad myself. I have 2 kids. My kids are older than yours, but I've been through that phase, trying to juggle activities and what have you. It's not easy, but obviously it has to be the top priority. I am interested, though, in Brooklyn's racing career. Tell me about it.
So she started outlaw car racing, I guess it's 3 years ago now. I think she has so much natural ability. She hasn't been to victory lane yet in the form of a feature. She's won some B features in several heat races, but she's been second on several occasions in the feature. So she just loves it. She loves the thrill. I mean, she loves every part of it that I do. So I get it.
Yeah.
My youngest, I think, has a lot of natural ability as well. She loves driving the Razor out in the yard and stuff like that, but doesn't want to race. She wants to focus on dance, which I totally respect. So the racing thing with Brooklyn, who knows where it's going to go, but we'll ride it as long and wherever she wants to take it.
So I'm curious, as a guy who's made it to the absolute top of the sport, how do you bring your daughter along? Are you teaching her the same way you were taught?
I'm trying to, because I know that worked. I mean, my dad, mostly my mom and dad, were very successful, obviously, to get me to where I am in the conversation that we've had already. And I know that there's that recipe that works, but I also know there's other recipes that work. And I've been a part of those conversations with several different people because of what I've done in the last 20 years. So I feel like, and I've seen so many times where, a name gets you places, but in the end, talent has to keep you there. And I want her to have that talent. So I don't give her the best thing that money can buy. I don't give her brand new tires all the time. I don't give her all those things that would make it easier. I try to use that recipe of what my dad did, which was not skinning by, but, getting by with less and making more out of it. And she's done pretty good at that.
What's the number one lesson you want to instill in her when it comes to racing?
Really, the number one lesson is just how to use the qualities of racing in your everyday life. It's about communication. It's about teamwork. It's about people. It's about all the things that make everything successful. Only you're the one holding the wheel, and it's up to you as a driver to communicate what you need to be faster. And that's the process of performance, a human performance or business performance or financial performance in so many opportunities in life. So I think just my dad told me a long time ago, if you don't do good in school, you don't get to race. So I think that that's the guaranteed part of it. Like I don't, it's not strong arming her into being good at school. It's making her focus. And that focus that happens on the racetrack can transfer over to everyday life real easily.
It puts skin in the game, so to speak, right? Gives her some motivation.
And
yeah, absolutely.
I think you know this because you've been a part of many different types of sports where racing is a team sport, but she is her own team. She is her own quarterback. She can literally just, once she has the ball, she can run if she wants to. I feel like that racing gives her that life challenge of how to be successful as a person, but then also use the team around her, be it her parents, her family, her friends, whoever, to try to be more successful.
Just it sounds like you're doing everything right, Ryan. It definitely sounds great. I wish her the best, and I wish you and all your family the best. It just reminds me of something I want to talk about, and I want to get to the Daytona crash. But the reason that our conversation about your daughters reminds me of that is because of the picture. The picture of you walking out of the hospital there with your daughters. These moments you're explaining right now, a lot of us were very concerned that those moments might not have happened. When you think back to that Daytona crash and everything that's transpired since, what do you think?
I think I was blessed. I think I had several people that said prayers that put angels' wings wrapped around me so that I could, wake up, so that I could be normal, so that I could be me still. I feel like 100%. I was completely blessed and lucky. And I think lucky is just a generic term for what we think or say when it comes to God's wishes and God's acts. So ultimately, just to be able to be here and support my kids, support other people, but support my kids mostly, and that picture of, like you said, of walking out of the hospital is so special to me because I get that opportunity whenever my kids want to hold my hands, and that's so special because not every parent gets that.
You have that picture framed anywhere in your house or anything?
Yes.
I would imagine it's
incredible. But I don't need the picture.
No.
I don't need the picture because I feel like from that day on, it's not changed who I am. It's just changed my perspective on them and changed how I feel and do and what my day-to-day actions really are. And you could say, yeah, that changes you, but it really doesn't. It just changes my priorities and my focus. And what I thought was 100% is 200% now.
That's great. One of those moments I'm sure that you cherish, and I remember it because it happened in my backyard, essentially. You won an SRX race at Stafford last year. It was their first Stafford win. And your girls were there, right?
Yes.
So it seemed to me like that made it a little extra special.
That made it like more, whatever extra special it is times a million. Because I had been through so much. I mean, that was my first win after the crash, after all the stuff that I had been through, losing my cup ride, all that type of thing. And I was going through some personal stuff too. So that blew everything out of the water because it was an amazing, amazing feeling to have them there. I mean, I remember my Brooklyn was on top of the car. Ashton was on top of the car. It was special for them because what I went through, they went through too. They went through it with me. So like, I think that they got a little firsthand taste of what Daddy's experience was. My life experience had been, you go back, I think you remember, I want to say it was 2019. I missed the playoffs in the second round, if I remember right. And my youngest Ashland's over there pouring water on top of my head in Charlotte at the Roval to try to cool me off. Like that transferred over into being in Victory Lane at SRX and celebrate. You know what I mean? Like that came full circle of us, being together at the racetrack, going from a bad condition to the greatest condition. Beating the SRX drivers was an amazing feeling, but doing it with my daughters in Victory Lane was the ultimate.
Yeah, it was huge. I was close to it because I'm a Stafford guy, but it's great to hear you explain the true perspective and the emotion behind it. Staying with the SRX theme, man, it seems like Stafford's your place. It really does. Like you not only won that race, you came back this year. They had a doubleheader there. You won one of the races. Probably should have won both of them, but the rain came instead and kind of wiped it out. Growing up in this area, I've always been, told that that's a really tough racetrack, but you make it look easy.
Well, I got an opportunity last year to race the modified before the SRX race, and I think that kind of parlayed into a better performance for me. But you had guys that had raced the year before there at Stafford, so they had laps just like I did, and I think it's a fun racetrack. It reminds me a little bit of IRP in Indianapolis, where I got a lot of laps, and just the combination of the car, the track, the laps, and I've always said that I like the mile and a half banked racetracks. If you look at my stats, I'm the best on little short tracks that are flat. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's got something to do with how I was raised, quarter midget race and midget race and on flat tracks, that you have to have a little bit more car control, and you have to have a little bit more, I guess, maybe patience to not burn your tires off because the banking's not there to hold you.
We just call that talent.
Well, you do, but yeah. People think of me differently if I call myself talented.
Let me do it for you, okay? I'm happy to do it for you. You won the championship in the SRX Series. Where's that rank in the accomplishments you've had?
That was a big step in my career too, because I was so close to the Cup Championship in 2014 and hadn't won a championship since 1999. So that was the USAC Silver Crown Championship, and I guess if you do the math, it's pushing 25 years later to win another championship. And I had won other big races that made me a champion, Daytona 500, Brickyard, all that stuff. But that's not the same as winning a series championship, and that SRX Series championship being what it is, made up of, some of the greatest drivers of all time, period, was really special. I mean, like, we're talking about NASCAR 75, and what was it? Me, Stewart, Labonte, Kenseth, Biffle, right?
Yeah.
If I'm just doing that off the top of my head, all top 75, they're all participating in that in some form or fashion that, we were successful enough to be able to win the championship in. That's really special.
Hey, before we let you go, I got to talk about, you being back in Cup. You've been back in Cup this year for a handful of races. What's that been like?
It's been a big learning process because the competition is so much closer because of the way the rules are with the car, first of all. But second of all, the way that the car drives was different, a good bit different than the last generation car that I was pretty used to. So it's taken me some time, and if you'll watch me, I'm not the quickest at the start of the race and the green flag drops, just trying to get accustomed because of the lack of practice, the lack of testing time, the lack of anything that gives you some experience. Those guys that do it all year long, I'm playing catch up to for the first stage, or at least first half of the stage. So that's a big disadvantage when everything's so close. But ultimately, I still love racing. Not my favorite stock car generation to drive. Could go into a whole different segment of our discussion here, talking about that, which is probably better not. But I feel like there's still fun cars to drive and look forward to doing it. And ultimately, where I'm at in my career, I'm doing it because I want to, not because I have to.
And that takes a little pressure off, I would imagine, right? Just doing because you want to, rather than people pushing you toward a championship and things like that.
Well, I've never felt like I was pressured into driving or racing, but there are places that I like more than others. And in this situation, I'm able to pick those places, whether it's Homestead or the short tracks like Martinsville and Phoenix and Bristol and places like that, where I feel like the car is not as much of at risk when it comes to the safety parts of it that have been, it's been so publicly criticized for, that I'm just, being selective. Let's put it that way.
All right. So what's next year look like?
Next year looks like a big question mark, really. I mean, I'd love to go back and do the SRX Series again. I'd like to defend my championship. And I know that there's the schedule that's been, I think, published as far as at least the dates on the TV side of it, so that it exists, and look forward to that opportunity if it arises. Well, I love the modifieds. They're a blast to drive and have a lot of fun doing that. And again, going back to our original conversation, whatever Brooklyn chooses to do, I'll be doing that first. So until I know those things, which I don't, I think she's going to have a chance to race some focus midget races on pavement, do some more dirt races at Millbridge and places like that. We went to nationals out in Iowa this year. So I think that there's plenty of opportunity to fill up the calendar. We just got to do it and make sure that rule number one, we're having fun doing it, fun doing it.
That's a great rule. Absolutely. You should adhere to that rule. Hey, I want to talk to the audience real quick. Folks who have been loyal watchers of Cup Connection, thanks for being with us. We remind you to hit like and subscribe to our channel. And please, as we've talked to Ryan, he's one of the 75 greatest drivers in NASCAR history. We have talked to many in that category this year, including Brad Keselowski, Chase Elliott, and so many more. Check out our archives. And if you want to catch up on those interviews, they've been great. Hey, Ryan, I know your arm is probably getting tired. You've held that phone out there in front of you. We're going to let you get a break. But I appreciate you joining us here, and I look forward to seeing you again real soon.
Thank you, Mike. It's a pleasure to be on the show.